here listening to us. And let me share the screen so that I can start introduce myself a little bit more. So let me share the screen here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So just a little bit. Actually, last year I had the pleasure of joining TESOL in Cần Thơ as a sponsor as well as a speaker. So you can see an image here. I have a lot of pictures, but I like to share about myself through pictures. So again, last year I had the pleasure of attending TESOL. It was so wonderful and it was really amazing, an amazing experience for me. This year, actually, I also had the pleasure of visiting Vietnam again. It was a family visit trip, but I got to see Mr. David Fay. Actually, we have known each other for a few years since I worked as an English specialist for the U.S. Department of State. And you see a lot of images of me here participating in TESOL here in the US. Really, TESOL and English to me have been the threads of my global connections, and I have mentioned that it's kind of a full circle in many ways. I come from Vietnam originally. I came here to the US to do my graduate degree 20 years ago now. And then I ended up staying and I did my doctorate in TESOL as well. I worked as the director of the English language program at Chatham University here in Pittsburgh for 12 years. But now my full-time work is with Eduling, the hub for task-based language teaching and learning. And through the talk today, I will share a little bit in terms of my creation with tasks. So going from theory to practice. Yeah, nice to meet you all and thank you for having me. Over to you, Hướng, to introduce yourself.
Um, can I share my screen? Oh, okay,
Okay.
thank you. Oh, okay, yeah. This works. Hello everyone. Oh, I'm gonna share my screen. All right. My name is Huong Phung. We do share a last name, and I really wish that we related, but we're not. Dr. Ling Phung. All right. I got a master in TESOL with distinction from the University of St. Andrews, and I work at RMIT University, Vietnam. My focus area is, I think, a little bit different from most of you here. I've been working for 7 years in international K-12 programs, including ESL. But my main area of focus is English as a medium of instruction. And I've been integrating and teaching a lot of modern English literature and media. So very good to see everyone tonight, and thank you for being here. All right. So today we are doing an interactive talk in module 2 of the course TESOL methodology. And because this module focus on learner-centered instruction, I'd like to start today's session with a bit of a warm-up polls where I'd like to get to know you guys as participants in this course, especially in terms of how you have been experiencing learner-centered in your classroom. So in a moment, I'm going to share the link to a Padlet. All right. Ooh. This is the link. All right, as I'm showing on my screen, there are three poll questions that I will share with you guys in a moment, and I hope that you will spend about 2 minutes answering them. All right, the link is sent in the chat box. We have about 13 votes now, so almost half of the participants today. Let's look at the result. All right. Regarding the question number one, it seems that most of you guys are in progress. So yes, please go on, complete the module. I'm really glad that you have started it. Number two. All right, most of you have voted for the third option, and I think this is actually the ideal option. You combine both teacher-centered and learner-centered approach. And finally, for question three, most of you chose option B, which is somewhat confident. Um, a few teachers are very confident. I'm glad to hear. But if you are not 100% sure, I hope that this session will be of use to you. All right. So over to Chị Linh. You can start with your section.
Okay, so thank you, and let me share my screen again. Okay, so the first part is some theoretical foundations. My first question to you, maybe in the chat, is to what extent do you like theory? If you want to put a number on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you like theory? 9. Okay. 1 to 5 or 1 to 10? Okay, 1 to 10 on a scale of 1. Okay, sorry, 1 to 5. So you have 4. That's good. So that means that you all like theory in some way. And actually, theory is very useful when we don't have empirical evidence yet, right? Theory can predict what works and what doesn't work. So theory can be the most effective that way. And if you think of theory, basically it's the fundamental knowledge that we need to know to understand our practice and our context better. So I'm going to start with this slide here. Actually, I gave a presentation about the learning-centered approach before, and then I also started by explaining the different concepts, the different theories here. And I'm sure that perhaps you are familiar with these terms already. So let's take a look at some of the terms here. Knowledge transfer, different education models, right? So when we think about education models, it's about how people think about how we transfer knowledge. Knowledge transfer, you can look at the image here, is the idea that we transfer the knowledge from the teacher to the students. Right? So this is the transfer model. And then you have behaviorism. This is the idea that we need to develop students' skills by having them repeat something. This is typical in practice in the audiolingual method in language teaching. A lot of drilling, a lot of repetition with the idea that the behaviors will lead to learning. And then you have cognitivism. Basically, this focuses on how learners acquire knowledge through their thinking, right? Using their brain, using their cognitive or development or abilities to process knowledge and skills. Constructivism, here you can also see the term in Vietnamese. It emphasizes the idea that learners need to participate in the learning activities actively, right, to construct their own knowledge. So that's why it is called constructivism. And finally, here I have the term socio-constructivism, or in Vietnamese, I actually had to ask a linguist in Vietnam. Familiar with Vietnamese, and he suggested the term thuyết kiến tạo xã hội. And here we focus on learning as in being inherently social. And we need interaction, we need collaboration among people in order for learning to occur here. Does it make sense to you very quickly? But does it make sense? Okay, so in your teaching, reflecting on your teaching, what models do you feel you follow? Maybe a combination of different models, and you can use the term here, or you can use, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 different terms here. What is the dominant model in your teaching? And you can put in the chat. Okay. Three and four, one and two. Okay. One and two. Okay. Okay. Cognitivism is interesting that we cannot observe what is going on in the learner's brain. So basically, we still have to observe their behaviors. But of course, what is going on in their brain is also important. Okay, thank you for sharing. And now I want to explain this a little bit, and I'm just again, I want to ask a very quick question. How familiar are you with some of the concepts here? You see a screen here with different concepts, both in English and Vietnamese. So I want to ask, how familiar are you with these concepts on a scale of 1 to 5? We have socio-constructivism here. And different concepts here. You see three circles, right? The smallest here, or we should look at the biggest first, actually. So we have social interaction and we have internalization. We have ZPD, basically, it stands for Zone of Proximal Development, right? And then we have independent performance. So this learning theory was inspired or was, yes, Vygotsky. Have you heard of him? And perhaps you also have heard of sociocultural theory. So the idea is that learning happens socially among individuals through interaction before the learners can internalize the knowledge, and the teacher's role here is to act in the zone of proximal development so that they can assist learners to perform at a higher level before the learners can perform independently. Okay, so it starts socially in interaction so that the learners can internalize the knowledge. And what is most useful for teachers to do is to act within the zone of proximal development, usually through what we call scaffolding techniques. You scaffold learners' learning so that they can do something at a little bit higher level than what they currently do or can perform, and then gradually they can do the task independently. Does it make sense? So talking about learning, and I'm gonna get there in terms of the learner-centered approach that we are interested in today. What I also want to encourage you to think about is learning. Our job actually is to promote students' learning, right? So we actually put the learning at the center. So when we think about learning, other factors are important too. In this case, motivation, the reason for doing something, the impetus for learning, right? Engagement is the action. If you are actually engaged in the learning activities, then that is engagement. So motivation and engagement are actually different. Motivation gives you the reason to do something. And engagement is when you actually do it. You are engaged in the learning activities. And as teachers, of course, what we can do is we can affect the learning experience in the classroom. So I want to give you the quote here, and this is particularly important for language learning. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. So this is the idea of learning by doing. And in language learning, this is very, very important. We don't learn a language by attending a lecture, by just listening to explanations of linguistic knowledge. We learn a language by experiencing language in use, right? So as teachers, you play a role in motivating students, you play a role in engaging students. Of course, you play an enormous role in creating a conducive experience for language learning. So then I have a sentence there. Teachers can create an environment where students feel motivated and engaged in learning activities. I know it's challenging though. That's one of the biggest questions among teachers. How do I motivate my students? But I'm going to give you some suggestions here. Okay, so going to the different concepts here in terms of thinking about the roles of the teacher, of the learner, and of the learning process. And I want to give you some really quick definitions here. When you think about the teacher-centered approach or the role of the teacher being in the center of the teaching and learning process, actually, teacher still plays a very, very important role. We have to play the role of an expert, right? We have to play a role of a guide in the classroom, the organizer of the learning activity. So you can say that, yes, your approach is teacher-centered in this way. No problem with that, right? Learner-centered in this case means that the learners need to participate actively in the learning activities. So this is important. You have to organize your class or your activities in a way that help learners to participate in these activities actively. Now, in sociocultural theory, we talk about social constructivism. Really, this is the partnership between the teacher and the learner because the teacher scaffolds students' learning, right? If learning happens in interaction, then there has to be some kind of collaboration and partnership. And it can be between the teacher and the learner. So we talk about the teacher and the learner partnership. In sociocultural theory as well, learning can happen among peers. So if you have peer interaction with a lower level student and a higher level student, you can also make learning happen among peers, not just between teacher and student. Now, what I also really want you to think about is learning centered. Our role is to promote learning. And in language learning, this is particularly important because usually it is so common for us to stand in front of the classroom lecturing with the idea of our knowledge can transfer to the learner's mind, but that doesn't happen in language learning, right? So learning centered, our role really is to promote learning. Also, another reason is that usually what is taught is not what is learned, and particularly true in language learning. What is taught is not what is learned. So think about this. If you stand in front of the classroom, explain the present simple tense, and you think that after a lesson, the student understands what it is and they can use it. And it's not true because that's not how language is learned. So I encourage you also to think about learning center, right? Our role is to promote learning. Okay, so moving on, uh, going more concrete and specific here in terms of what you can do, then in language learning or teaching, you need to let learners experience authentic language in use. That is the only way when students can develop what we call implicit knowledge so that they can use the language. Okay, so learners need to experience language in use, and the more authentic, the better, through listening, through speaking, through reading, through writing, right? So right now, you're listening to me. You have a reason to listen to me, right? You're processing language. You're absorbing the content. This is a good example of authentic language in use. Is that right? And so, okay, and especially here, you need to think about communicative situations. There has to be a reason for learners to listen to something, to watch something, to read something, to express their ideas, right? And to write, to express ideas as
Bạn cô
well.
này, cô đang rất là có nhiều cái phương pháp để dạy tiếng Anh ấy. Thì đấy phương pháp
Okay.
read the
So
lecture yêu cầu học sinh.
and what I want you to maybe try to think about doing less is hearing maybe instead of for students, right? Instead of hearing explanations of rules and explicit knowledge. Some scholars think that explicit knowledge can never be transferred to implicit knowledge. If you want to focus on students' communicative competence, they need the implicit knowledge developed through communicative activities, right? And also, instead of doing mechanical exercises, because these activities also don't lead to communicative competence, you may say that in our classroom, we need to do some of it. I agree, yes, because of the curriculum, because of many reasons, you still need to do these activities. But perhaps we need to think about doing these things less if we want to focus on promoting students' learning. Okay, now another suggestion that I want to again here, this is general in terms of thinking about the learner-centered approach and the learning-centered approach. Use personally meaningful content. And later on, Hương can expand on this. If we want to truly be relevant to our learners, then our learners need to find meaning in the activities that you're doing in the classroom. So we need to use personally meaningful content in the sense that you need to know your learners' interest, background knowledge, culture, context, ways of thinking, so that you can use materials that are meaningful to them, that they care about, that are relevant to them. Materials, activities, examples, and explanations that are meaningful to them. Also, in your teaching, if you want students to be meaningfully engaged with the content, and if the content is so unfamiliar, then there will be a lot of difficulty. So perhaps you need to spend time activating their background knowledge and also allowing them and building their background knowledge as well. Okay, I think I need to give examples. This is actually, as some of you know and some of you may not know, I have a language learning app called Eduling. And later on, if you want to check out, you can do that. So I like giving this example because this is a task created by a teacher that I work with. And in this task, the students have to talk with Eduling AI so that they can guess what the emojis represent. And in this activity, the students have to guess the emojis that represent apps. And the teacher actually chose these apps: Duolingo, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, CapCut, Threads, Tinder, My Talking Time, Candy Crush, Saga, Subway Surfers. So to me, if I have to do this, I will fail because I don't know these apps so much. But then the teacher knows their students very well, and they know that Gen Z know these apps and use these apps, and the content becomes more meaningful to the learners. Right? So this is an example at a very micro level, but you choose examples, you choose content that students find meaning in or are personally relevant to them. Okay. Do all of you know these apps? Yeah, but your students, yes? Okay. First time hearing it. Yay. Okay. I mean the apps that the teachers giving as examples here, the ones that I just listed. Okay. So this leads me to task-based language teaching, and I know that usually I spend an hour talking about this, but I need to wrap up to transition to Hương. One approach that you can use to really give learners the experience of language in use is the task-based language teaching approach. And I didn't mention it, but I studied under Rod Ellis. He was my professor as well as dissertation supervisor. So he's a leading expert in second language acquisition, a very prominent scholar in task-based language teaching. And in 2022, I hosted him in a webinar, and he explained task-based language teaching in that webinar. And I want to quote him here. So task-based teaching views learning as taking place holistically and incidentally as learners perform tasks that involve listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Teachers do not teach language, rather, they facilitate its development. So this is actually really different. It's not about teachers standing in front of the classroom explaining one grammatical rule at a time, one vocabulary at a time, one linguistic or one phonetic sound at a time. It's about just getting students to do tasks. So it's very different from the traditional approach. So this approach is different from the traditional approach in the sense that you don't have any specific bits and pieces of language to teach. You only engage students in the performance of tasks. And right now, I'm sure that if you are not familiar with this approach, your mind is exploding. Because what do you mean we don't teach language? What do you mean we don't explain grammatical rules or vocabulary items? But I want to give you this example, and I wanted you to experience this. And if any of you want to volunteer to do this, I'm happy to do it with you, or Hương can help me to do this. So this is an example of a task in the book 50 hoạt động nâng cao kỹ năng tiếng Anh trên lớp, something like that. So this book is in Vietnam, and I published it with Miss Hồng Đinh, who many of you may know. And this is an example of a task when students have to use language to solve a problem. And as they do that, they develop their language skills, right? So in this task, let's just say maybe you have students at the elementary level in primary school, right? And they have to describe the life cycle of a butterfly. It's a common process that young learners have to describe. To make this into a task that requires meaningful language use, one student has three images, right? Three pictures, A, B, C. The other student has two pictures, D and E. They cannot show the pictures to each other, and they have to describe their pictures so that together they can sequence them into a process, the life cycle of a butterfly, right? So Hương, do you think that you can do it with me?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so you can be student B, so pretend that you
Okay.
cannot see my pictures, right?
Okay.
So Hương, I have three pictures, A, B, and C. In picture A, I see an adult butterfly with big
Okay.
wings.
Mm.
In picture B, I see a booba, like a little sac where maybe something is inside it, or it's a chrysalis. That's another term. And in picture C, I see a caterpillar on a leaf. What do you see in your pictures?
Okay. In a picture D, I think it's a pupa, like a
Mm,
cocoon, but it is partly open. And
mm,
I see a small part of the butterfly's wings
mm,
peeking out. And in picture E, there is an egg on a leaf.
okay. So what do you think is the first step or the first step in the cycle?
I think it's picture E because it's an egg.
An egg. Okay.
Mm,
Oh, and the egg is gonna turn into a caterpillar, right? So it should be
right.
picture C next.
Yeah.
And then I think the caterpillar is gonna turn into a pupa,
Mm.
a chrysalis. So that's picture, sorry. Oh, why is it blinking? I'm sorry. Okay. I think I click on something. Um, and then the last, what do you think comes after the pupa? What picture? Hương?
Let me share the screen for you. So here,
Okay. I think
I think
I can share it. I can share it. I find it now.
oh,
Can you see it again? So what's the next step after the
uh,
pupa?
the next step I think is after the pupa is B, right? The next step I think is
Mm,
D because the pupa is open.
yeah, and the butterfly is emerging, and finally it
Right.
turns into the adult butterfly. Right.
Mm.
Okay, good. So everyone, you can see how we performed the task. And of course, we are advanced speakers of the language. So we use complicated language. But you can see that your young learners perhaps can use simpler language to solve the task as well, or to complete the task as well. So that's an example of a task. Of course, a task can be input based. You may not to talk at all. You just listen and do something. Um, and then on my app, there are a lot of tasks like this. Students can hear a description of a picture so that they can find differences between pictures. I have a QR code there, so if you want to download the app, you can scan the QR code. Otherwise, you can search for it. It's called Edulink in the App Store. Now, the next thing that I want to show you very quickly, because I want to make it concrete to you, is to show you this is a demo actually of a task that we have on the Edulink app with AI. So we are working with AI and we want the AI to be able to perform a task with the learner, but it can also give the learner feedback, corrective feedback, and that's when learning happens as well. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I'm going to try to do this activity and for you to see. So this is not on the app. This is just on the web for me to show you how it works. And on the app, students can talk with the AI directly. So we are playing 10 questions. I have a secret animal in mind. Ask me yes or no questions to guess what it is. You have 10 turns. Good luck. So I'm gonna ask, is it big? And no, it's not very big. Most cats are quite wide. Okay. I think something is going on here. Try again. I'm gonna try again here. Okay, so let me make a mistake. It big. Yes, it is big. It is one of the largest animals on land. So I made a mistake here, but it still understands me. So, and you can see that this is an example when it uses language correctly, right? Um, it fur. No, it doesn't have fur. It has thick, wrinkly skin. So it gives you some hints as well. Um, okay. So it doesn't eat meat. Maybe something is going on here. I want to show you that it actually gives corrective feedback because we program it to do it. But maybe I just chose something wrong here today. But anyway, on the app, we have tasks like this so that students can use language to solve a problem and they use language meaningfully in these ways. Actually, I'm going to share the screen again and ask you a question or a few questions here. Okay, so I showed you how many activities? Let's just say two activities. You just watched me and Huong perform a task, and I also showed an activity with Edulink AI on the Edulink app. And I want to ask you this question, the first one, and you can do A, B, C, and you can have more than one correct answers, right? How do the previous activities promote learning? Question number one, if you want to put A, B, or C, or a combination of options here, can you do that in the chat? How do the previous activities, the butterfly activity and the chatting with Edulink AI, how do the previous activities promote learning? Through learners' participation in communicative language use activities. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I wanted to show corrective feedback, but our AI didn't do it today. Good. So, but through learners' participation in communicative language use activities. And what would you call these activities in terms of the approaches or models that they follow? Learner-centered, learning-centered, teacher-centered, learning-centered, learner-centered. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You can also think of it as teacher-centered in the way that the teachers develop the activities and organize the activities. Task-based language teaching may look like the teacher doesn't have to play a big role, but it's not actually not the case. The work that we do around organizing the activities, developing the activities is very important. Okay, so thank you for participating, and I'm going to hand it over to Huong to give you some more practical strategies.
All right. So over to my part. It is a more practical section to follow up with Ling's inspiring theoretical foundation talk. So I would expect you guys to be doing more in this section, and I totally understand if some of you are busy. This is quite late in the day as well, but if possible, please try your best to take part in the activity that follows. But before we begin this photo time, we'd like to take a photo of all of you. Also to record your attendance. So please open your camera and change your background to the VietTESOL background if you can, so we can take a picture together.
All right, everybody, it's time for the group photo. So I would like to invite each and every one of you to turn on your camera and change the background so we can all look beautiful together. Okay, so whenever I say 1, 2, 3, can you please give me the V letter like this? V stands for VTSOL, okay? Is it all right? Yeah, thank you very much. Right. Everybody, please put a big smile on your face. And when I say 1, 2, 3, give me a V letter. Thank you very much, Mr. Tadat, for turning on your camera. And Miss Phương Dong, it's so lovely to see you today. All right, so everybody, 1, 2, 3, cheese. Wonderful. One more shot, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. You look all beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so Miss Hương, you
Okay.
can
Yes.
start
Let's get
your
back.
presentation now.
Okay. uh, In this section, we'll look at a few practical strategies so you can implement learner-centered instruction in your classroom. And we will cover 3 points. First is building a learner profile. Second, understanding learner differences and differentiation techniques. And finally, teaching strategies. We will cover only 3 strategies, but please understand that there are a lot more than that. Okay? So first, we do learner profiles. Uh, if you look at the name, right, it's learner-centered instruction. So apparently it must start with teachers having a thorough understanding of your learners. And it's not just basic information like age or language proficiency, but it's also what excites your student, what they are afraid of, things like that. And this should be done ideally at the beginning of every course that you have. Having a learner profile, if you took the course, took the module, this form should be very familiar to you because it is one of the quiz activities. So here's the table with a lot of information about your students that you can fill in before you teach. With this profile, you will be able to deliver more targeted instruction. So as you teach, ideally, you are not teaching the same way in every class because classes are different. So you are teaching to this particular class, not to other students. Based on this profile, you can also differentiate your activity. So maybe giving different activities and also expectation to different groups of students based on how they are different or the same. And finally, if you understand your learner, usually it's easier to engage them because you know exactly what is going to make them turn wow. All right. This is an example of a class that I am teaching, uh, together with a few tips for you to do this in a more effective way. So first, I'd suggest that you only focus on actionable item. There are information about your students that are not technically relevant to your teaching. So for example, if you look here in ethnicity, this is very important for me because I have Korean students and sometimes Nepalese, Indian. This is a very typical of RMIT classes. But for most of you, your students will be all Vietnamese, so you might not need to list this down. Second tip, you should use multiple sources of information. In your chat box, I'd like you to help me type out where do you think you can get information about your learners? So you need
Asking time.
information about your learners, right? Where and how would you get them? How do you know what excites your learner, what motivates them? No one's answering. Um, Usually, most teachers will do this based on observation. Thank you, yeah, for reminding everyone that there's gifts. We have a gift for people who participate, guys. Thank you, Miss Phùng Thủy Tiên. Questioning observation, right? Very accurate. Previous teacher. Social media, very interesting. All right, Ms. Duong V is bringing up a tool that I think is very crucial, a survey. And this is what I do at the beginning of every class. I try to frame it as a warm-up activity, but actually I am trying to understand what they like. I would give questions like, if you have a day just to yourself, what would you do? Um, Placement test. Yeah. So a lot of different sources of information that we should take into account, and not just observation. Usually it is the most common tool there is, but please rely on different sources. And finally, keep it flexible. As you teach normally, you would get to know your students more, and a lot of information about them change. Maybe you're a great teacher, and a student who originally is really unmotivated has become more motivated over time. So I'd suggest that you have different checkpoints to update this learner's profile. So you also adapt your teaching as the course goes. All right, now over to you. Um, right now, I am going to send you this Padlet link. Actually, throughout today's session, we will continue working on this same Padlet. And what I want you to do is focus on the second column, which is called Learner's Profile. All right, the link is sent to the Zoom chat box. Focus only on the second column, Learner Profile. I'd like you to comment under my post. Think about one class that you are teaching or you have taught recently, and note down some information about your learners. You can add more information if you find them relevant, or you can omit information you find irrelevant. And I will give you guys 5 minutes for this activity. Second column. All right, I've got two responses so far. Uh, it seems that the class size that you guys have is relatively large. 18, 25. Mm. Miss Halle, you seem to have a really thorough understanding of your students. Um, I think it's the most crucial one is you understand what motivates them. Motivation is really important. Um, all right. Oh, Mr. Duke is teaching really young age students, 3 to 6 years old. My daughter is 2. She's going to be your student in a year. So maybe you can teach me how to engage her. They are very curious about everything. I agree. Yep. So that's learner's profile. Thank you for your participation. And if you are still writing, please continue doing so. I'd like to just again highlight that this should be updated throughout the course. All right. Now moving on to the second point that I want to cover. It's learner differences and differentiation. Uh, if you are ready for this section, can you type number 2 in the chat box, please? Thank you, thank you. Okay. Um, of course, in your class, students should be similar in a lot of ways. If they are not, they're a problem with your school. They should be ideally of the same or similar ages. They should have the same learning goals, or their parents have. But they are very different in many aspects. First, the cognitive ability. So if you think a student is smarter than others, that is cognitive or thinking ability. They are different in terms of language proficiency. Some might be stronger in terms of language, and they also vary across skills. So there will be students who are stronger in reading, but some would be stronger in speaking. Motivation, of course, personality, and learning preference. So when you teach, you don't teach to students as a homogeneous group. You teach to different individuals. And in a learner-centered approach, we'd like to not leave anyone behind. We try to meet students where they are, and that means you have to probably give different students different types of instruction and activities. All right, now over to you again. I will give you 2 teaching contexts. If you can't type, think about it. I will walk you through the teaching context for a bit. So in the first teaching context, students will be different in terms of language proficiency. And I think this should be very familiar with you already. So for example, in an IELTS class, the overall band score, entrance score is 5.5. But usually in individual skill, they are different. So in reading, for example, some students might be at 6.0, 6.5, even higher than that. But some have a 5.0 in reading because other skills, they are better. So let's imagine that you are teaching them a reading lesson where they have to answer, let's say, the MCQ question in the IELTS reading test. What would you do to support lower band students without slowing down higher band students? Usually, teachers would spend a lot of time with the weaker students. And so the stronger students, right, they finish the work early and they have some idle time. But they should be spending that time to learn, right? Not to sit idly and doing nothing. So how would you balance? How would you cater to the needs of both groups of students? In the second teaching context, This is an academic writing class for 15-year-old students, so late teens. Some of them are highly motivated um, because they like English, they want to study abroad. But some are just there because their parents make them. And this is very common as well. I've seen a lot of students like this. Um, what kind of strategies would you use to engage both the highly motivated and the less motivated students? But I guess this would ask more about the less motivated students in the same writing lesson. How would you engage them both? And I'd like you to go back to Padlet. Here, the contacts are posted in Padlet, and I will give you again 5 minutes to think and to type out your answer. And I thank you in advance for your participation. Really appreciate it. I'd like to call everyone's attention to Miss Mithian's answers. I think it's perfect. It's very comprehensive. Miss Mithian, are you comfortable opening your mic and share your answer with us for teaching context number 1?
Hello everyone. Hello teachers.
Yes, could you briefly share with us your response to teaching context number 1, engaging students of different language abilities?
Um, Yes. In this Miss Ability IL reading class, I could support lower band students through scaffolding and differentiation while keeping higher band students challenged and engaged. First, I would teach a shared core strategy for MCQ, identifying keywords in the question, scanning for paraphrase, and eliminating distractor. And I would differentiate the practice stage. Lower band student around band 5.0 could work on fewer questions or shorter session, which such as guide step, keyword highlighting, or center level evidence checking. This helps them focus on the process rather than feeling overwhelmed. At the same time, higher band student band 6 to 6.5 could complete the full set of MCQs under time pressure and be asked to justify their answer by explaining why the other options are incorrect. This deepens their understanding and improves test efficiency. I could also use flexible grouping in mixed ability pairs. Stronger students can model effective reading strategy while I circulate to give target teacher support to quicker students. Occasionally, I could regroup by level for focus practice so that instruction is more precise. Finally, feedback could be level specific, strategy awareness and accuracy for lower band students, and speech, paraphrase recognition, and distractor analysis for higher band students. This approach allows all students to work towards the same lesson objective while progressing at an appropriate pace for their level. Thank you for your listening.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think you touched almost every aspect of differentiation that is available. I'm gonna share my answer as well, and I will also talk about how some of these strategies they will work wonders, but as teachers we have to be a bit cautious in how they might fail if we don't consider them carefully before we implement them. Let's say for teaching context number one, I think Ms. Mithian has talked a lot about targeted scaffolding. So I think most of you are familiar with this. You will stand next to the weak students, give hints, ask scaffolded questions so they can come up with the answer by themselves. Sometimes I do more implicit scaffolding. For example, I will give out vocabulary list, and students may, choose to get that list or not, depending on how confident they feel with the reading. So that is, I think, the number one strategy out here. But it also means you have to spend a lot of time individually with students, and the planning time that you have to invest in lesson plannings is tremendous because basically in one lesson you plan for three different lessons if you have three groups of students with different abilities. So I mean, this is the reality of differentiation, is very time consuming. A few strategy that I'd like you to consider with caution. Differentiated inputs. This is something that I actually tried before. Of I used ChatGPT to generate a graded language version of the reading text. If I feel like I cannot be always available to support all the weak students individually, and this, of course, I give them option if they want to take it or not. But this helped tremendously with students who are at the bottom 20% of the class. But here, the IELTS is a valid test. So if you consider giving graded language question or reading text, be careful not to, compromise the validity of the test. Especially for IELTS, paraphrasing is very important. So if you are simplifying a word that the student should be able to understand the paraphrases, you are compromising the test. And finally, I see flexible grouping. I think this is something that we have all tried in our teaching career. You pair a stronger student with a weaker student. And this work in a lot of times, but only if they get along. And the stronger student feel like helping others. So if you want to do this pairing, I think it would be smoother if you make sure that the stronger students, sorry for my toddler screaming in the background. I hope you can't hear her. Make sure that the stronger students understand the benefit of this pairing to them. In the past, I give out like peer assessment tasks, but I didn't explain. I didn't explain how. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here comes my toddler. He can't sleep without mommy. So here, actually, what I think is really interesting in peer review and peer assessment tasks. Shh, mẹ đây, mẹ, is that actually the one who benefit the most from it are the stronger students because through mẹ đây rồi. Mẹ thương. I'm sorry. This is life. What happened? Thế
Hương, do you want to wrap up?
oh, all right.
You can take her.
Oh, all right. She's here. She's calmed down. I'm sorry. I mean, again, the stronger students are actually the ones who benefit the most because through explaining why the correct answer is correct, they are engaging more deeply with the content and they are actually learning a lot more when they are trying to teach the content to weaker students. So once they realize that they actually get something in this, not like they are doing like free work, they are more engaged in the task. All right. In teaching context number 2, I think that it's just typical motivation and engagement problem. And here I'd like to call your attention to Deci and Ryan's ARC motivation theory. I know it's old, but to me personally, it still stands. You will offer student choices, autonomy, but of course, they are structured choices. You don't give them all the freedom in the world. So I always manipulate my toddler to think that she has options, but I only give her options that I like. So only give options that help your students learn. If you let them choose freely, they will not choose to learn in many cases. Relatedness, something that I think Chị Linh mentioned earlier, you want to relate to what they like. At the beginning, always lead in by activating the schema, what they already know and like. Relate all the contents to their life, make it personally meaningful to them. So for example, I am actually a big fan of anime, and when I say this, the whole class went crazy. So whenever I have to give an example, I give an example from anime. Always work. In the picture below, I think you can see here a story writing activity, but I actually use my students as characters in my examples. They love it. So call their name, make sure that they feel like you see them. And finally, give them a sense of competence. And this is something that I really want your attention in, is that most teachers try to praise weaker students for their effort. But I hope that you also praise your stronger students because they deserve it. You are trying to motivate weaker students, but also stronger students. They need to be recognized once in a while. All right. Other strategies are on the slides, but I don't want to take a lot of your time, so I'd like to move on to the teaching strategies. And this again, I mentioned TBLT, which is something that Chị Linh already mentioned, and I know that many teachers love it. Project-based learning and workstation, which is another strategy. I'd like you to participate in the quizzes, and this will be self-paced. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'd like you to try to answer these questions, and through this process, you will understand more about these methods. Sorry. How do I get the join link? All right. All right, guys, the join link is in the chat box. No, mẹ không cho trái tim bay lên, để các bác cho trái tim bay lên con ạ. Con có muốn cho trái tim bay lên không? Let's do that. All right, guys, let's give you guys another minute, and then I will wrap up the quiz. All right, everyone, I'm gonna end the quiz, but I will export the questions and answers and send it to you guys later after the workshop. All right, let's look at our top 3, and congratulations, you guys will get a gift from TESOL. Congrats, teacher Đức Minh, Phương Anh Ngô, and Cẩm Tú for being the top 3 in this quiz. I'd like to just wrap up my section by saying that these are not the only strategies. You are doing learner center anytime you think about your students and you try to meet them where they are. So if you are not doing these, don't worry. You are still doing learner centered. If your student actually learn, then it's good. Regarding these strategies, and especially TBLT and PBL, remember that teacher plays an important role always. I am a citizen on Thread City. I don't know if you guys use Threads, but a lot of students from universities around Vietnam, they complain about doing too many presentations. And the teachers actually don't teach. They feel like they would prefer just simple lecture over activities that we may find more learner-centered. And this problem happens because the teachers were not there enough. So again, remember that if you are doing a project work, a task for your students, you have to be there with them through all the steps of the way, giving feedback, guidance, and telling your students what is right. All right, so that is my final note. I will give the stage to Chị Linh again.
Wow, thank you so much, Hương. That was really great with a combination of strategies and activities for the teachers to complete. And I think I don't want to keep you too long. So I think the best thing that I can do is to be here and answer some questions, or I can follow up with some ideas that Hương just presented to you. But before we do that, I want to send you these 2 links. Task-based language teaching has been researched and talked about a lot, but there are still a lot of kind of misconceptions or misunderstandings. So when Rod Ellis presented this approach in 2022, he actually addressed the problems or addressed the misunderstanding of task-based language teaching. And then recently, I interviewed him again on task-based language teaching and different topics related to second language acquisition. So I shared with you 2 links in the chat if you want to learn more. And just to share with you, I'm running a series of interviews with these researchers and scholars. So if you want to follow me, I share a lot of ideas regarding task-based language teaching. So to pick up on Hương idea in terms of self-determination theory, right? Autonomy, relatedness, competence. And yesterday, I just had a conversation with Dr. Hayo Reinders, who is also really prominent in research and second language acquisition. And we were talking about autonomy in the age of AI and personalization. So an important topic that came up is teaching students how to learn, right? When we think about second language acquisition, it takes students a long time, a lot of hours of instruction, a lot of hours of language practice to get to the high level. I can give you numbers from research. It takes students about 1,500 hours to 4,500 hours of instruction to get from A1 to C1. And that is instruction. It doesn't even talk about language use. So the point is that perhaps classroom time is never enough. So if we want to think about students learning and being learner-centered, we also need to teach them how to learn. So I was going to talk about the topic of self-regulated learning. This is the idea of helping students to regulate their learning, to be in charge of their learning, to take ownership of their learning. And there's a systematic framework for you to address these things. Sometimes when we think about autonomy, when we think about self-regulation, we often think that students can do these things on their own, but they can't, right? The teacher plays an enormous role in helping students how to learn. So Dr. Hayo writers, myself and other scholars, let's just say that, wrote a paper on self-regulation, and I gave a presentation to the US Department of State on this topic. So I'm just want to share with you maybe one slide, and then I'll stop for you to have questions. This presentation is on YouTube, and later on I can find it and then share it with you. And this is the systematic approach that we presented, or I presented, when you want to promote students' autonomy, self-regulation. You actually need to address their motivation, their learning needs. So help students to identify their needs, help them to set goals, make plans, help them to complete tasks, right? The teacher is here all along in this cycle or in this framework. And then self-assessment is also important for them to know what they are good at, what they still need to improve. And even with their learning skills, we can also help them to develop the learning skills. So I don't want to spend too much time explaining this. The presentation is on YouTube and you can watch it, but I'm happy to answer more questions. So let's just say this is an example. This is an example of, I love this quote. So in that presentation, I also mentioned this quote, that whatever you practice will grow. Self-regulation is about how we integrate learning into our lives. The idea of whatever you practice will grow applies in all aspects of our life, right? If we argue with someone a lot, of course, we're going to argue more. If we practice listening to English every day, and then our skills will grow, and that habit will stay as well. So helping students to form habits, productive learning habits, is important to help them to grow in their language skills and in their learning skills. So I have a short video about how to help students with habits, but you can take a quick look at some of the tips here, right? Maybe they have to try it for 30 days. They have to stick with something for it to become a habit. Have a schedule and put check marks next to the activities that you have completed. Set reminders and notes to remind yourselves. Attach it to an activity you enjoy. I often give an example that I enjoy drinking coffee. Perhaps if I do something productive before drinking coffee, then it will become a good habit too. Reward yourself, right? Reward yourself with something small. So these habits are really difficult to form, yet they are really important. And there's another quote that I want to mention, is that when motivation fails, then habits is something that will push you forward. So think about it in terms of helping your students to form productive learning habits. Okay, so finally, maybe I want to just touch upon self-assessment a little bit. If you want to help students to be better at their learning, then help them to self-assess. So these are some questions that perhaps you can ask students. If you can do it after each lesson, that would be also a great way for students to reflect on their learning and to develop their learning skills. You may ask, what was the lesson about? What did I learn? What made it difficult? What's next? So only 4 questions. Usually the suggestion is 3 questions. What was the lesson about? What did I learn? What made it difficult? And if you can ask students these questions consistently for them to answer, then it will help them to develop their self-assessment and learning skills also. So students can also ask broader questions about self-regulated learning. Always, they can ask whether they are on the right track of meeting their goals, right? What was not working for them? Have their needs changed, right? And what resources they can use to further develop their skills. So I think I want to stop here and see if you have questions regarding things that Hương has shared and I have shared, and see if we can clarify a few more things or hear from you. And for me, I actually, like I mentioned, I shared a lot. So please feel free to connect with me either on Facebook, I am on Facebook, or on LinkedIn. If you have a long question, feel free to email me instead of texting on social media if you need to explain. And my email address is here. So I think I missed something from Hương presentation that I wanted to compliment, to comment on, but I think I'll stop here and see if you have questions. Yes, okay. So someone just posted the quote there that I also like. When motivation fails, it's habit that helps you move forward. Yeah. And I was trying to show you the demo, and I this is what I wanted to show you in terms of task-based language teaching and using AI, or as a teacher, what you should do in task-based interaction. Task-based language teaching is very intensive interactionally, actually. So the teacher plays a very important role. And in a task-based interaction, when the learner makes mistakes, you can provide corrective feedback, but in a way that still moves the conversation forward. So, for example, here, when I say it big, I made a mistake here, and the teacher or the AI can say, is it big? I think you mean, is it big? So it corrects you, but still in context, so that you can learn the linguistic form incidentally. So this is also a really important aspect of task-based language teaching. Project-based learning, I also appreciate Hương comment that if you do project-based learning right, you still play such an important role, right? You set up the project, you walk students through the steps. So these days, when we talk about experiential learning, there are drawbacks with experiential learning in the sense that you cannot just put students in a situation and hope that they will discover something and learn something. Remember scaffolding. What is important there is scaffolding, actually, pushing students to the next level of performance. So in whatever learning approaches, teachers play a very important role. It would be a misunderstanding to think that you will just give students a project and they can complete it and they post the project somewhere and they learn something. Maybe they learn something by interacting with other students, by solving the problem, but the scaffolding still has to happen somewhere. Anyway, okay, so I will stop here and see if you have questions, comments, anything that we can help clarifying for you.
Yes, I've seen one question from Mr. V in the chat. Dr. Lingpung, can you see it?
Okay, let me see from B. Thanks for the inspiring sharing today. I'd like to ask about pairing the strong and weak students. How does teacher convince the strong ones that it's beneficial for them to learn through helping others? Maybe let them experience it. It's true that usually in the US, I had students coming from different countries and having different proficiency levels as well. And the research also shows that helping other students, or I actually like mixing students with differences in backgrounds, differences in ideas, and also different proficiency levels as well. And most of the time, the students, if the task is engaging enough and there's still the reason for them to do it, then I haven't seen the problem. But so my answer would be to develop the activities or the tasks that are engaging. And even when you put students with different proficiency levels there, they can perform at their level. The example, this is a strength of task-based language teaching as well, that the task is somewhat very open, somewhat open-ended. You don't know what kind of language students are going to use. So that gives them the freedom to perform at their level. So like when Hương and I performed that butterfly task, we used some pretty complicated language. I remember Hương used the word picking through, right? Picking out or something like that. Is that what Hương used? So I noticed it. With more basic students, maybe they will just describe what they see. So my point is that they can if you have engaging enough tasks, then I'm sure that the more advanced students will find enjoyment in that too.
I'd like to add a little bit of my personal experience. So the stronger students, first I asked the class to reflect back on a course that they have taken and ask them what is the thing that they remember the most. And at RMIT, we always do projects in every course. So usually they only remember the projects that they presented and none of the things that they were taught. So that is to show them that the more they engage, the more they remember and they understand. And also I actually designed the activity maybe rồi, so that the weaker students can rate the stronger student in terms of how well they help the weaker students understand, and I give prizes, so some external motivation going on here to give them like an incentive to be active.
Yeah, and actually, research also shows that the more proficient students benefit as well. And maybe something that you can tell the students is the best way to learn is to teach. If you can teach something to other students in terms of being more proficient and wanting to explain to other students, one of the best ways to learn is to teach. Okay, so there's one more question that I think we can address and then we can wrap up, right? Self-regulated learning, I have heard about it a lot. Is there a guided process? And what's noted to develop students' discipline? I have to be frank that sometimes assignments or tasks may not be something students are interested in. I would love to see a book you recommend. Okay, so I will send you the link to that presentation delivered to the U.S. Department of State, and I will send a link to that position paper that we wrote together. It is free to download. I cannot find them right now, but I'll share it maybe through VietTESOL or the Zalo group. And you're right, discipline is very important. Like I mentioned, forming new habits is so difficult. Think about you wanting to pick up an exercise. Think about you wanting to adopt something productive. Yet it's so difficult to start something new, form a new habit. Okay. So I think I need to go. I have another thing that is going on. And if you want to join, actually, you can join. I just put a video on YouTube about pronunciation research. You can see that I am interested in various aspects of second language acquisition and research. And if you want to join it and watch it, I'm there to moderate it as well. But I just want to say thank you so much to VietTESOL for inviting us and for organizing this session. And thank you to all of the teachers who have been here with us and learning together.
Wow, impressive. Thank you very much, Dr. Ling Fung. You might see that now it's 10 p.m. already, but we are still currently having more than 40 participants in the Zoom. What a very incredible number. So on behalf of TESOL, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Ling Phung and our super mom Hương Phung for just such a very informative, interactive talk. And once again, I would like to say congratulations to Miss Cẩm Tú Đức Minh and Miss Ngô Phương Anh. You got a special gift from Real Vietnam. So please just drop me your address and your phone number so I can deliver the gifts to you to the doorstep. Okay. And yeah, everyone, thank you. And I would like to say thank you all for your active participation. And we look forward to seeing you next week for the third interactive talk of the Teaching English for the Young Learner. Okay, so good night and enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you very soon. Goodbye.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank you very much. Enjoy your night. Goodbye.